Welcome to this week's episode of Your Stock Request for the 23rd of November. Every week I will look at the charts for a few different stocks as requested by you. Just email us at mail@fairmontequities.com with your request. There's a limit of one per person and no guarantee that your stock will be covered depending on the demand. Also, just take note of our disclaimer. Any advice is general only. The first stock we have today is Saira Resources. So this is a daily chart from the lows in April. You could see there it's so far rallied from about 220 to about 440, so it's doubled in value. This is one that we've covered a few times in our weekly research. There's more than 20% of the stock sold short. They're developing a graphite project in Mozambique, so clearly it's a fairly risky one. Not everyone's cup of tea. Just coming out to a weekly chart here. As recently as last week, I showed this chart to viewers on Sky Business on the Switzer program, but I'll revisit it here for our request. So what I've noticed is from its peak, so it peaked around 650 in 2016 and the shares fell away. What I've noticed is this, to me, looks like a head and shoulders or an inverse head and shoulders. So we have the left shoulder, the head, right shoulder. This is the neckline. Shares broke above that. This was back a few months ago. And then it's come back to retest the neckline, and we can see the powerful move that has happened in the last few weeks. Again, this is a weekly chart, so in the space of 3 weeks, we've gone from under 350 to nearly 450. So what I've also noticed is in the last month, the number of, or at least in the last week, the number of short positions has gone down on the stock. So a bit of short covering. Again, this is not everyone's cup of tea. It's quite risky, but with a bit over 20% of the register sold short, if that needs to get covered, then you'll get a fairly sensational move in this stock. In terms of the question to me initially was, do we buy it at these levels? I'd be looking for a pullback. So what we do is if we measure the depth of the inverse head and shoulders and project it upwards here, that gives us our initial target, which is around 450 and which is about where the shares are now. If I zoom out, you'll notice that this seems to be, this sort of 450 zone, seems to be some clear, some obvious resistance. So look, the shares will probably come back here in the short term, whether it's a few days, a few weeks, it's hard to say. So I'd be looking to buy it on a slight dip. And if it cracks 450, then we've got quite a bit of upside. So Saira is looking pretty good at these levels. Okay, the next request is Afterpay. We can see that it hasn't done much. It's really only been, APT has only been listed in this present form since looks like end of June. So the shares, so looking at a daily chart, initially did nothing and then they started to rocket up. Still looking bullish, so we don't have much to go off here in terms of the chart, but what I can see is quite a few bullish daily candles. So this white candle means it opened here and closed up here, so we could see these nice big moves up, sort of meandered a little bit, another nice move. And then when the shares pulled back, we're talking about a fairly flat correction. Look at the volume here, just no volume on the way down, so still very bullish. Volume comes in, shares shoot up, meander higher again. So a lot of bullish candles, volume in the right places. If I was holding this stock, I'd be happy to keep holding. It looks like there should be further upside. The next request is Capilano. So it's had a rough, 2016 was a bit rough for the stock. It was trading in the 20s and fell all the way down to 14 and managed to bounce back suddenly in the middle of this year. If we have a look at a And just looking at that trend there, we can see that it's broken above that, congested for a bit, and now it's heading higher again. The moves can be quite exaggerated with Capilano because it's not very liquid. Just looking at a daily chart, so that was the jump up in the middle of the year, and this looks like a cup and handle formation. So what we've got is this sort of rounded area here, and then this forms the handle as it congests under this peak, and now it's making a bit of a move again. So I'd say this one would be heading probably back into the low 20s, but we can see there's a lot of price action here. So the shares probably head up here and just encounter a bit of selling. There'd be a lot of people here looking to exit the stock after sitting on a loss for about a year. The next request we have is Retail Food Group. Bit neutral on this chart. I mean, it's initially had a good run up to that peak in 2015. It was sold off quite sharply, tried to stage a recovery and has come back to these levels. So there could be some support here. We're still on a weekly chart. We could see in July it bounced up quite nicely, but unfortunately it came back again pretty quickly. So it's trying to find support. Ideally, I'd like to see it clear $5. And once it's already got that upwards momentum, I'd be a bit more interested in it. But at the moment, a bit unsure about where it's going to go. We can see here that potentially there's this triangle forming, which implies a potential break to the downside. So I'd just be watching this one. I wouldn't be buying it just yet. And finally, AKG. To be honest, I've never heard of this one before, but we can have a look at the chart and we could see that this is sort of rounded out, bit of a base there across 2016. Looks like it hasn't traded for a bit early this year. Not sure why, but just going off the chart, we could see that it's finally broken above that and it's starting to look a bit better. This is the daily chart, so we could see it hardly trades, so not the best stock to do some analysis on, but can't deny the fact that it's broken above that base. Seen some fairly bullish candles, a bit of sell-offs as well, but generally trending higher, but just given it looks like a bit of a lack of liquidity, I couldn't get too excited about it. All right, well, that's it for today. Remember, send in your requests. I'll have a look at your stock next week, and make sure you do the right thing by your friends and share this page on Twitter and Facebook, and we'll get more people following and submitting some interesting stocks for us to look at.